You want your brand story to drive measurable business results. And if you're using the right genre of story that your audience can relate to, then you will create tremendous appeal for your offering. But most brands are not connecting like they could because they're telling the story they want to tell instead of the stories their audiences actually want to hear, leaving tons of revenue on the table while competitors who understand genre thinking capture market share. Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and I'm delighted you're here with us today because you are going to meet Greg Logan. He's the author of Creating a Blockbuster Brand and founder of Narrativity. He's worked with companies like Google and Adobe to shape their stories. He believes you can achieve breakthrough brand transformation through the Hollywood formulas revealed in today's episode. You'll discover the 27 genres framework with loads of examples so you can figure out what genre is right for you and, more importantly, what genre is right for your customers. Hello, Greg. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Park. It's great to be here.
And you are coming to us from one of the most popular destinations in the world, Lisbon, Portugal.
Yeah, everyone seems to be here at the moment. I just had friends leave. I've got my family arriving next week, and it's getting busier and busy. But it's a beautiful place. I know why everyone's coming.
And you were originally from Australia?
I'm an Aussie. I'm an Aussie born and bred. In the 90s, I lived in Italy for a couple of years, and up until 18 months ago when I moved permanently to Lisbon, I lived 8 years in Los Angeles.
And were you out there in the TV movie business?
Yeah. It's a company town. I moved there to create reality TV shows. That's why I moved to LA. So yeah, I was following my dream like everyone else does. And I took a detour from that after a few years. But that's why I went there. And look, I had a great time in LA. It's the best weather in the world. It's the best time zone in the world to do global business from. And every night of the week, you've got the best entertainment that exists in the world. So I had a great time there.
And what was it about reality TV in particular that attracted you? Because to me, there seems to be nothing real about reality TV.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reality is they use real people so they don't have to pay the wages.
Right. Okay.
That's the reality of it. Look, I can tell you the whole story. It's probably the story of where I learned my greatest life lesson. So I can tell you that story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
How I got into reality TV. So I had over 30 years of advertising. I was a bit of a wonder kinder advertising at 19. I got a job at Leo Burnett and I did really well. I was creative director of Leo Burnett Milan at 25 years of age. I started my own agency. I sold it. But I was having Groundhog Day after 3 decades, and I'd written a few films. I was really bad at feature films, but I wrote a short film that did really well and won hundreds of awards around the world, the Crystal Bear at Berlin. And I thought, oh, this is fun. I like traveling the world, picking up awards, but I wasn't stupid enough to become a full-time movie writer. And so I thought I'd do branded content. And I left advertising to do branded content because it was my two worlds. And after a few months, I entered the global competition at Cannes for the best new reality TV format. And I was one of 5 chosen. So I went to the Grand Palais, I presented in front of 7,000 people, and I won the best new reality TV format.
That's cool.
In the world.
Yeah.
I was inundated with offers. As a prize, I got a global deal with Warner Brothers. I was speaking to Ellen DeGeneres the next day for my format. I had CAA as an agent, and I moved to America because of all this. And all of a sudden, I wasn't doing branded content. I was creating reality TV. Everyone said, "No, stuff that. you're really good at reality TV. So I moved to America to create reality TV. Now, everyone said I was doing well. And look, in 18 months, I sold 12 formats to the biggest networks and TV
Like, did
companies in
we
the
see some of those shows?
Here's the problem. What happens is they take it and they tweak it enough so it's no longer mine. So they pay me a few $1,000s and go, great, we're gonna sell this. This is amazing. And then Ellen DeGeneres' company was a classic example. They did a show called Little Big Shots, which was based on something that I had done. And again, I saw this, or it would just go off into the ether, or new people would come and they weren't interested in it. And after a couple of years, I realized I moved my whole life to America, my whole career. I wasn't making the money. I had a mortgage. I couldn't go home. I'd left advertising, but I also didn't want to go back to it. I was kind of stuck. And I just went, what the hell am I going to do? And as this was all happening, I went to South by Southwest, the big popular culture conference in Austin. And there was all these stories. This was 8, 9 years ago. All these talks on why brands need to become better storytellers. And I was there, like everyone was. But on the flight home, I realized everyone was saying very convincingly why. But I realized not one of them said how. So I went home to LA and I was driving down Sunset Boulevard and I looked at the Hollywood sign and went, that is the how. Hollywood's formulas are how brands can become better storytellers. And I spent 3 months kind of translating those formulas for brands, and I quickly left reality TV behind because that was probably the lowest of my life. But it got me over there, and it took me to a place that I would never have thought of creating Narrativity, which is my business. But from the moment I started it, it took off. And it was what I was meant to do in my life. Very few people have that expertise in brand and advertising like I do, an understanding of brands and what they want. And very few people have also done entertainment in every form and can put those two things together. So that's how I got into reality TV. It's how I very quickly left reality TV. And do you know what? I used to create 10 shows a day. Like, I'm a compulsive creator. From the moment I started Narrativity, I have not thought of one TV format in 9 years.
And now you are working with brands all around the world with helping them refine their story using your Hollywood-based story templates and your knowledge of working in the industry.
Yeah. My whole career, I've been working with the world's biggest brands, but I had that reality TV hiatus. And now I'm back working with them. But what I love about what I do now is, yes, I work with huge brands. So I've been working with Google and Adobe and Gemini, like big brands. And it's great making rich companies richer, but I really love working with smaller brands from entrepreneurs and startups. I produce the same outputs for them. I charge them the same money. But what I do for a smaller company changes their life, like completely changes their life. And all my greatest case studies and success stories are from smaller or mid-sized businesses because it's just gone. Whereas I make the rich companies do better, but it's not that trajectory that I do with the smaller companies.
So you're trying to democratize brand storytelling, basically, and bring the small to medium-sized businesses that can't typically afford huge branding agencies. And quite often, those huge branding agencies don't get it right either. They're mired in old ways of branding. And I'm with you in that I found Hollywood storytelling back in early 2000. Now, I was never in the same role as you had, but our son Parker went to film school. A lot of my listeners know this story. And he was at Chapman University in between 2006, 2010. And that was about the time I'd been running my agency for 10 years, and digital marketing came in, and I was lost. I was like, how the hell do you work in the digital realm? Online, it seems like it just sucked the creativity out of advertising as we knew it. Branding got even more difficult with all of the noise out there. So I asked Parker to send me his books and his recorded lectures when he was done with them, since I paid for them, because I want to know what Hollywood knew about storytelling that I could apply. And that's where I found, of course, the hero's journey, like so many people in our line of work. But when I saw it as a customer journey or a business owner journey. I saw it beyond what Hollywood knew about it, but I knew that business leaders probably wouldn't embrace what they would think of as the woo-woo-ness of Hollywood. So I created my 10-step story cycle system, mapping the hero's journey to 10 critical storytelling steps in every aspect of running a company, promoting a brand, and speaking to that consumer from, as you put it as well, that I believe wholeheartedly in, as the hero of the story. Your brand story is not about you, it's about your customer. Your brand story is not about what you make, but what you make happen in your customer's life while they are on their journey. So you play that very important role of mentor guide. And I wrote my book, Brand Bewitchery. It came out in 2020, and it's all basically a textbook on how to use the story cycle system. And this is all leading to the question, there are now a lot of books on the market about how to use Hollywood storytelling for branding. What makes yours different?
So I read a lot of them when I decided to do this, just to make sure I'm not saying the same old thing.
Right.
And look, I think what is great is the world's discovering that you just can't sell anymore. Like you have to tell a story. You have to engage people, because when I started in advertising, we would just put ads on air and you just tell everyone your features and it would work because everyone was sitting there. You had a captive audience in front of that TV. Well, people don't watch TV anymore. Everyone's flicking through at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So unless you trigger their heart in some way, whether it's being really funny or really shocking or just really engaging, you ain't going to succeed. So what is great is people are realizing that, and people like you and me and many, many others are going, here's how you can do it. And we all come at it from our own perspective and our own experience. And you saw the hero's journey and you saw a customer journey. My entry point was brands need to become better storytellers. So you really come and certainly your ABT formula is really about how do you connect one-on-one with that customer. It's very, very powerful and a great hook to see how to get them to see you in a different life that's meaningful to them. Whereas I came at it from South by Southwest. The big thing was why brands should become better storytellers. And I was like, I need to create the how. The most financially successful storytellers of all time are the movies. The movies have built LA. Every movie that Hollywood makes is built on the hero's journey formula. So I broke down all the different formulas in every which way: the genre, the quest, the enemy and superpower, the backstory. I broke them down to everything I know from my 30 plus years working with brands, what they need across their suite to
Mm.
tell a stronger brand story. So probably my stuff is not about that one-on-one sales thing, which a lot are. Mine works at a overarching brand story. And I think probably if you look at the difference probably between you and I, like ABT, for instance, it really gets people nodding for that one-on-one selling. And work up on the big lofty movie area.
Mhm.
So I would say, you get them to buy the ticket, I get them eating the popcorn.
Well, that's a good way to put it, but the ABT is just simply a structure that enables people to very quickly use story structure of setup, problem
Yeah.
resolution in a message. But our story cycle system, I think, kind of does what you're talking about too with yours. It's very much of a deep dive into what is the ethos of this brand, the vision, mission, values, what are the brand personality traits, and then how do you organize them in a storytelling strategy such that all the content you create is not only on brand, but it is using those proven frameworks to hook that Homo sapien sitting across from you. When you were talking about your early career in advertising, and I experienced the same thing too, where we used to just be able to put out great TV commercials, didn't
Mm,
think a lot about story structure, and the ones that always worked really well had a story structure too. In
mm.
fact, we won an Emmy Award for a campaign we did for Goodwill of Northern Arizona, or Central and Northern Arizona. And then we had produced a second spot to go in that campaign, and the second spot didn't pull at all. The first one was off the charts good. I mean, people were talking about it like 5 years after we ran it. And Greg, I went and looked at it and I go, well, why was this spot so good and this spot so bad? Because we loved them both
Mm,
like, our own
mm, mm,
children.
mm.
Um, and that first spot that won the Emmy had an absolute story structure to it that was intuitive, that we didn't think through it, but it was definitely there. The second one was just a creative piece that, oh, we're so creative as an agency. Isn't this beautiful? That's when I realized in the early 2000s that I needed to become an intentional storyteller and not just an intuitive one. And I'm curious if you experienced the same thing.
Look, I'm one of those people that all through my life, even as a kid, people go, "Oh, you have such great stories." You know, you I've always loved them. I think my father was a great storyteller. My uncle was an actor. So I did have that influence, but I also was, like many, many people, I love TV. I love the movies. I was not a book reader. And I just I love stories. So when as I got older and understood there was a formula or a structure to them, I loved that. And I think there's something you've been saying, Park, and you said before that, you know, people don't tell the right story, then they engage an agency, and even the agency gets it wrong. The reason both clients and agencies get it wrong is they both want to tell the story they want to tell. So a, a brand goes, we have all these great proof points, we just want to tell them. Then they brief an agency, and I know because I was one of these people, the agency wants to be famous for what they create. So they
Mhm.
want to use the client to promote themselves. And I know as a creative, you do it to win awards. So I just wanted to do what I wanted to do with the product. And neither the client nor the agency is looking at the most important thing is, what does the customer want to hear? And your formulas and my formulas, um, all they do is make everyone focus on what is important to the audience. And then you tell your story within that structure. And when I started this, I thought, oh, formulas as a creative in advertising, that's a dirty word. Like,
Right.
you can't use it for everything, has to be completely fresh, completely new. Um, but what I found is the formulas give me freedom, just like they do a movie writer. If the movie writer didn't have that structure to create the unique characters, the unique situations in, but the formulas, the hero journey gives them the guardrail to make sure they're always keeping the audience engaged. And so I think probably from you and I both, we inherently love story, but we understand how to break it down into a way to make sure you nail it every time.
Mhm. We'll be right back with Greg Logan after I share with you some of our early users of the StoryCycle Genie and what they have experienced in developing their brand story, now doing it in minutes, not months.
I thought it was really impressive, actually. I shared it with some of the team and they were like, yeah, it's kind of nails it, actually. I kind of want to know how you did it.
It was fascinating. It was fun to see, my story translated back into this, system and looking at the archetypes and, my positioning. I was like, oh, am I doing it right? And my narrative, very much eye-opening into the importance of story.
I think what surprised me most as the output from the Genie was its comprehensive analysis of everything that EI for Change is and everything that EI for Change stands for.
So a couple things that really stuck out, I'm looking at the document now, that I was like, oh, because I do consider myself pretty good with words, but there was a couple things. So one, it's just the simple sentence that said, for leaders and organizations trapped in the false choice between being authentic and being successful, like trapped in the false choice. I was like, oh, that's a mic drop.
I think it's really cool. I mean, I've seen AI everywhere, all over the place now, like everybody else has. And it's rare that I see the application of AI actually produce something useful. A lot of times it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then you don't use it, right? Your thing is useful.
Using StoryCycle Genie, I love it for so many reasons, but one that I want to make sure everybody hears loud and clear is it's contained. Your information stays in there. It's in a box. The other people who use it can't get it, and the internet at large can't get it.
But it does an excellent job of assessing my LinkedIn and my profiles and what little social I've got out there and my website, and it boils all that down and it says, here's who he is, here's what he is, here's how he needs to talk, here's what he needs to say, here's his alignment, here's his assessment, here's the heroes in your brand story, here's your fears, your aspirations, your frustrations, your challenges, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like going, ah, damn, that would have sure been easier than me creating that damn brand. But it is outstanding, so congratulations for what you've built.
Now I got a special offer for you, and it's free. You can learn the strength of your current brand story using the StoryCycle Genie Brand Story Grader at absolutely no cost to you. Just visit StoryCycleGenie.ai. Fill in your name, email, and the URL of your website. There's no credit card required. And within 60 seconds, under a minute, you will get a grade for your brand story and a 14-point storytelling assessment. Just click on the white button on the homepage at StoryCycleGenie.ai and see what it reveals about you and your brand story. Now, back to our show. One thing in your book I found really fascinating, well, a number of things I did in it, this idea of all the different story genres. And you've got 27 different genres that you want people to be thinking about and pulling from to find that one genre that they're going to base and build their entire brand story narrative strategy upon. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. When I was looking at the world of movies, one thing I realized was the writer, before they write anything down on the page, they go, what kind of movie is this? Do I want to do a romance? Do I want to do a comedy? And we as the audience have got to know genre very well through Netflix, because when we sit down, we go, what do I feel like tonight? And one of you might go, I want a comedy, and one of you might go, I want an action, and you have to fight that out. But what we're doing there is working out what's the right thing for us at this moment, and defining the genre brings your audience closer to what they desire. And in marketing, we never think about this. We just jump to the story we want to tell, and we're completely missing what's the kind of story the audience wants. So to help my clients do it, I use comedy and action and sci-fi and all of those things. but I've created a meaning for it, for your business. And I'll give you an example of why it's important. Hyperloop, and for those of you who don't know what Hyperloop is, it's very exciting. It's the first new mass transportation form in 100 years. It's going to jettison you, environmentally friendly, from LA to San Francisco in half an hour. And when we started with them, I thought they would be sci-fi. There is no brand I've ever worked with that would be more sci-fi than them. And the definition of sci-fi is the future is here. And I said, well, you're sci-fi, aren't you? And they went, sure, but the future is here is our biggest problem. The future is our biggest problem because everyone's excited about us. They all know we are the future. They'll all get on board, but they think this is 30, 50 years away in the future. We need hundreds of billions of dollars in investment now. We need hundreds of billions of dollars of contracts from governments to say, we're going to do this. The future is our biggest enemy. And everything they'd been writing is about the future, and everything I would have written about them was about the future. And they chose the last genre I ever would have picked, which was historical. And the meaning is, it's amazing. You don't make an historical film unless it was amazing. But it's true. And they said, we need to tell people that this is true. This is real. As soon as they told me that, I knew exactly what I needed to write. I wrote things like, this crazy pipe dream is real. We're moving the world faster forward. Get on board. Like, I just kept writing messages. This is now. And within 6 months, they got 4 global contracts. They got hundreds of $billions of investment just because they said, no, we're not sci-fi, we're historical. I knew the kind of story they wanted to tell, and they would never have even thought about telling me that unless we defined the genre first. It's very powerful.
So you really fell into that trap that we all do, I guess, as you showed up and assumed it was going to be a sci-fi. And the brand says, well, it's certainly sci-fi, until you do a lot more digging and you go, wait a minute, no, this is history. The future is now type thing.
Yeah.
How would you have told it as a sci-fi story?
Oh, like, this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened. The world's never seen anything like this. This is going to take us into the future for generations. And, that would have been the story I would have told. I would have been excited about it like they were. But then they were like, this isn't helping us right now.
Mm-hmm.
It really isn't. And if their audience was consumers, yeah, for sure. But their audience was investors and governments.
Gotcha. And they got to get on board now as this thing is moving forward. So how does a brand go about finding that appropriate genre? They may on one hand think, oh, we are a comedy, when actually they realize that no, they're a bromance or whatever it might be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I have 27 genres, as you said, and a meaning for each of them. And what I do is I say to my clients, just go through it. Don't think too hard about it. And just go, what could we be? And the more they look at it, the more they see other things that they could be. In fact, I did a university once, and the group was a large group, but by the end of it, they chose 26 out of 27 genres. And the only one they didn't pick was family. It's for everyone, even though they chose the 26 others. And when you think about it, a university is everything, like within a university and the benefits of it. But I say, look, just let's create a long list. Then when we get to the long list, I go, okay, now let's really think about not what you feel comfortable in. Think about the story you want to tell going forward. And think about the story your audience wants to hear, not the one, and don't try and cram proof points into it because it's not an external message. And then I say to them, here's a thing I need to tell you. In movies, there's comedy or there's romance, but there's also rom-coms. And you can put two genres together if it tells the complete story for you. I would say half my clients just have one genre and half have multiple genres. But um then when we get down to a real short list, I ask people to make a case for why they think that is the right genre. And when people discuss it out, they really get to the one that's right to them.
Okay. And then in your work too, and it's just really interesting timing because I just had Laura Reese on the show. She's a daughter of Al Reese, the famous positioning expert who wrote the Bible on positioning called Positioning. And she is out with a new book called The Strategic Enemy. And you talk a lot about enemy and superpower development. Can you share a little bit of insight on that for us?
Yeah. So, look, I think in marketing, it's not really common, but I've seen it a bit. People go, "What's our superpower?" And the danger of that is you're just reinforcing that you're talking about yourself. So brands will go, "Trust. Our superpower is trust." I ban my clients from using the word trust because everyone wants customers to trust them. But I go, if you said, "Trust me," I'm not going to trust you. And I go, what is it that you do that makes people trust you? What is it you do that engenders that trust? And then we've got something to talk about. But people might go, simplicity or value, or that's our superpower. But what you want with your superpower is you want it to be your brand essence, something that everything you say, you look, you feel, everything you project, you want people to feel this. And it's going to be far more effective if your superpower defeats something your audience hates. So that's why I go, before we even talk about the superpower you have, let's talk about your customer's greatest enemy. And when I say, what's your greatest enemy? They always go, people don't know us, or our competitors slam us on price. Or I go, yeah. That's your enemy. Your customer doesn't care about that. That's your problem. What is their enemy? So they might be too busy. They may be, there's all these different things in their life, depending on what the audience is, that really is their greatest barrier to success. And when you find the really meaty one that you go, yeah, that's it. Then we go, okay, now what's the superpower that you have that defeats that? Because if you go out and tell everyone a superpower that really answers their problems, you become really important to them. And again, it's another way to stop you telling the story you want to tell and start telling the one the audience wants to hear. So that's the power of the enemy and superpower. And movies use it. Every movie has an enemy. Now, sometimes it's Darth Vader and you're Luke Skywalker. There's some pretty heavy enemies in the world, Voldemort or whatever. But sometimes the enemy is internal. Someone, if it's a romance, it could be your fear of commitment. That's your enemy. And eventually you will find a superpower to overcome it. But that enemy and superpower creates the tension to create an engaging story and create a happy ending.
Give us a couple, 3 examples of brands that maybe you've worked with that you identified who that enemy is and how it led to their superpower and what those are.
So I'll give you one. This was a really great story. It was a startup. It was an app, a digital app that helped people in financial difficulty get out of it and to understand where they were sitting. It's like financial scores and all of that, but little roadmaps and ways to help you get out of it. And they knew they had a good product, but my client came to me and said, "Greg, we have a problem. we have hundreds of people on this beta phase and not one person is using it. So we can't even work out what we need to tweak because no one's even using it to tell us what works and what doesn't. And so we did the whole narrativity process, but when we got to enemy and superpower, they worked out that their audience's greatest enemy was fear. The reason they weren't using the app was they didn't even want to look at it because they were so fearful of what terrible situation they were in financially. So they were ostriches head in the sand. They didn't want to look. The whole room just went, oh my God, this is our problem. They're too scared. So we got to a superpower of how do you defeat fear? It was action. You can actually do something about it. And it told me, okay, I need to express this idea of action. And it was feel good about money. You could do something about it. As soon as we went out and said, feel good about money, it flipped the script and everyone started using it. It was hugely successful. And it was so successful from these customers that a huge financial organization bought them for hundreds of millions of dollars before they even launched. And he said, Greg, all that went down to defining the enemy.
Absolutely does. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't know, and so often people get locked up in the logic and reason of what they believe that enemy is. Market dominance, a competitor out talking us, throwing us under the bus when it really is the emotional driver, typically, of the person you are selling to.
I've just opened my book to look at some others that I've put in examples, but fighting indifference with care factor. I mean, care factor is a great superpower. Fighting worry with know-how. Fighting rigidity with can-do. Oh, this is a insurance company, a global insurance company that invests in smaller insurance companies that probably could be doing better. Fighting unrealized potential with the brave pill. I mean, what a cool superpower. They give those businesses the brave pill to go, I'm gonna realize my potential. So just so you know that these are not messages you go out with. These are the genre and the enemy and superpower are things I do to help you define your brand, help you define the kind of story you want to tell. And then everything else that I do and it's in the book are messages, but they express the genre and your enemy and superpower.
And it's really great. As I read through it, I was applying it to our new product in the StoryCycle Genie. And I thought, really, what are we fighting? What's the enemy we're fighting and helping our customers fight? And that is the indifference.
Yeah.
Like they look at your brand and go, whatever. Yeah. And then we even think about, how do you make sure that people are not indifferent to your own product that you are trying to get them to overcome and fight indifference? And what we have seen and the experiences that people have tell us is that working through the Genie in this story cycle process is that it is enthralling to them. I mean, you see it in their eyes and they're like, wow, this is like magic. I hate to say that word, but of what it's showing us. And then when it creates the brand story, it is meant to go out and enthrall your colleagues,
and
your customers.
What I like about that, Park, is enthralling defeats indifference.
It absolutely does.
And that's got to be the great.
Both.
That's got to be the great test. Does your superpower defeat? Is the enemy something you hate and your audience hates? And does that superpower defeat it? Then you've got something good.
And another enemy we've got is people being just completely overwhelmed, and you deal with it all the time with your customers. Like, I'm sure they come to you and say, Greg, we have this great product and we've been growing, but not nearly as fast as we should because we don't know how to talk about our story. But we are overwhelmed in thinking, how do we even possibly build this brand story? And so how you overcome the overwhelm with the StoryCycle Genie is we want you to be overjoyed in the process because of how quickly it works for you, how fast, how it provides you insights. And so overwhelmed, can a brand have more than one enemy that they are overcoming?
Yeah, look, you can have multiple enemies, but you want one superpower because the simpler the outtake of your brand, what people feel about you, the stronger it's going to be. Like if there's a consistency. So, but I have to say that overwhelmed is one I see a lot, because in any category, it's a human truth now. The way the world is, we're so
Yeah.
overwhelmed with everything, and there's so much choice, and so whatever category I'm in, I see overwhelmed a lot. It's a big enemy for people.
Yeah. Final question for you on this, and I get this all the time. How do you measure the success of brand storytelling?
Look, I would have to say, look, I think it's the problem with how do you measure marketing, and it's difficult. However, most of the time I work with my clients, their pricing doesn't change, their product doesn't change, their people doesn't change. Their story changes. That's it. And I've seen again and again my clients improving by 5%, 35%. Their business doubles. The next year it doubles again. I told you the story about the financial help app. No one used it before. We told a new story. It worked so well, he sold the business. Like Hyperloop is a classic example. No one was touching them. We told a new story, hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's how I measure it. There is those markers that only difference is the story, and the business has gone like that. But I have to say, Park, that one thing my clients say to me again and again is there is so much pride in this company now. Everyone loves our story. Everyone tells our story. Everyone's clear on the story. When they tell the story to their customers, they love it. And that's how I measure. I mean, in my session, I measure it by, I don't move on until someone says, "Oh my God, goosebumps," or "Hell yeah." Like if I don't get a hell yeah or a goosebumps, I don't move on. Like that is my measurement. Have we nailed the story? Because I just see how excited they are. All clients cry when I read it back to them, which happens a lot. But that's my little measurement. That's my personal measurement.
But that's a huge one, because it starts internally. If you don't have your people bought in and sharing your story, and you're not seeing increases in recruiting the best talent, retention, and your people evangelizing your story, then it's really not going to work externally. So that is one of the very first best measures, if it's working or not.
Yeah, and I make sure that happens right from the start, Park, because what I do is I do a 6-hour input session with my clients, and I say all the key stakeholders need to be in the room. If there is anyone who can undo all this because they're not in the session, then they need to be in it. We're not doing it until they're in it. And what happens is everyone has a say, but everyone can see what everyone else is feeling and everyone's excited about. And half the things, the genre, enemy, and superpower, the quest, the logline, the personality traits, we come up with in the room together. It's finished. It's done. Like in that session. And they're all just so excited. And then the other half, the love story, the backstory, the tone of voice, they give me the inputs that I go away and write. And 3 days later, I present it back. But I never have anyone reject it because they've already been on the journey. And they've told me they've been part of creating it.
Yeah, the co-creation thing.
And they have complete ownership of it. But also for me, they feed me the gold. They tell me things about their business that I would never have thought of. And I use the formulas and my skill as a copywriter to make it magic. But I can see firsthand their response to it, if they're excited or not.
How do you see AI now playing into this and brand storytelling in general, and even the work you're doing? Are you using much AI?
Yeah, I am. Like, I'm a sole operator. I don't have any staff. Every client wants me, and I've always looked for ways to how do I scale. And when AI came along, I was like, perfect.
Got it. Yep.
And I was really disappointed. For a couple of years, it was pretty bad. It just, because how AI works is it very impressively scans the whole universe and plays back what it's found. So when you ask it in terms of a story or even worse, a tone of voice, it will play things back in a cliche, like the ultimate cliche, because it's scanned everything to then condense it down. So my number one job is to stop my clients conforming to the conventions of the category, and I create a unique voice and write it in a very unique way. AI does not help me one bit do that. Um, but how I use AI is once I've created the unique voice, once I've written a few things, I put it into AI and go, this is the voice that we are looking at. And can you give me another option? And sometimes it's great, but where I find it's really valuable is when I'm happy with something I've done, I put it into AI and it edits it for me. And I love that because I've never had someone edit my work, and certainly as fast as AI can. But it sees things, it cuts things out that it's not needed, or it tries different things, and some of them are naff, but it's fine. I don't use them. Or sometimes I go, oh, I like this thought. Give me some more options for that. And it just takes the work I do just up that bit more. And sometimes it gives my clients a lot more options. I go, look, I did this, and here's something AI did, and I
That's
really
so
liked
cool.
it.
Yeah. So you are doing it kind of backwards than what
Yes.
most people do. Most people say, AI, write me a story, and then they'll come in and try to fix it. You write it first and give it then to AI and say, take a look at this and let me know, am I being redundant? Is there another idea here? And then I found that too with AI, that it will come up with some really surprising ideas like, ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's dead on. How come I didn't think of that?
Yeah. Because if you give it a blank sheet of paper, it looks elsewhere. So it's going to play back a story that you will look at and go, wow, that's impressive. That all makes sense. And that sounds cool. And you did it so fast. But it's going to sound like everyone else. So, and I'm seeing this again and again. I can see straight away, AI wrote that, AI wrote that, AI wrote that. So I lose trust in whoever's writing it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give it something like you write the story and say, can you make this better? It's focusing on that. It's using its incredible skills and multi-dimensional intelligence just to work on that. That's powerful.
Well, and like with our show now and using the StoryCycle Genie, it's a lot of work to produce one of these shows. You've got your own podcast and create the show notes and whatever. In the StoryCycle Genie, it knows my brand voice. It knows my own personal profile voice, and I will feed it the bio for the guest. I will give it the transcript of our conversation. And in some cases, like in your case, I will have uploaded the PDF of the book and say, here's the gentleman I'm talking to. Now help, write my show notes. I want to take a look at this.
Yeah.
So it's being
Great way to use
fed
it.
off of the voice.
Yeah.
And then I will go in
Yeah.
and I will probably change 10, 15, sometimes 20% of those. But every time I do it, the Genie knows, and then I'll give it
gets
back to
better
the
and better.
Genie
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
say, here's what you gave me. Here's how I revised it. And it says, okay, good, got it. I'm recording that to my memory. So then the next time it does the notes, it's, in my voice. And I have found it to be really quite good in a lot of different areas. Now,
Yeah.
general AI doesn't nearly nail it because, like you say, it's kind of fishing in the large ocean, where our Genie is more like the trout pond that knows you very well. And we ran your brand through it. I always do that with all of our guests. And all I did was, I didn't know anything about you other than the promotional pieces I got, but I ran your website through it and gave it your book. And then it said, oh, here's Greg's story. Here's the brand assessment of how he's showing up. And here is the brand story strategy that we see through his website based on our StoryCycle system. And then I sent that over to you, and I'd just love to get your thoughts. What did you think of the output that the Genie?
Oh, I was amazed. I was amazed. And I have to say, Park, that, I'm an expert on telling brands, I've talked about some of the big brands I've worked with, but people employ me to advise them on their story. But my toughest client is me because I'm too close to it. We can never tell our strongest story because we're too close to it. So it was just so great to see from a different perspective that wasn't mine, what is my strengths? And it was fantastic. It was just great. It was really great to see. And I think it's something everyone should do because, as I just said, we're too close. And we also never spend time looking deep into everything we are and who we are, what we do, and pull out what is the strength for the different audiences. And I think a real power of it was, like I do, is start with the audience. Who are they? Then what's the story you want to tell to each of those audiences to get them engaged and show why you matter to them. So yeah, I loved it. I was shocked. I was also very pleased that I got, I think you said 9 out of 10. And I was like, phew, that's a relief because I'm a professional brand storyteller. Imagine that would have been embarrassing if you got a 4.
Yeah.
But no, I loved it. I loved it.
Well, and in starting with, the enemies in that story, when we identify your top 3 audiences, we look at those emotional triggers, and 3 out of the 4 emotional trigger categories are about the enemies. What are the challenges that they're up against? What do they fear? What are they frustrated by? And then round that out by what do they want? What are their aspirations? And the idea is that is feeding the entire StoryCycle Genie engine about when it starts creating content. It's writing content using story structures with the and, but, therefore in our 10-step cycle, but it's speaking to that audience from their point of view and what that particular fear or frustration that you are going to help them overcome with this particular communication.
Yeah. No, I loved it. And I just went, how the hell did he do that?
Only 2 years of development and prompt engineering. But yeah, the idea is it just simply goes in and scans your website and then says, here's how you're showing up in the world. And then you can go inside the Genie and iterate on anything. Well, this isn't accurate. Well, it means it's probably not accurate on your website. How do you want that to say? Or, well, you missed an audience. Okay. Who's that audience? Let's put them in there. And you can go through and tweak everything from your unique value proposition to your archetypes to even your personality traits. And you were talking about the superpower. I do the same thing. We don't call it a superpower. We call it your emotional promise. What is, no matter who comes in contact with your brand, from your colleagues to your customers to the communities you serve, what do you want them to walk away feeling? And that becomes a one word. And I think it's what you're describing about your superpower. And our emotional promise is enthrallment. You are going to be enthralled by using it, by what it creates for you. Your customers are going to be enthralled to overcome people looking at your brand with indifference.
Yeah. I mean, and you said mine's transformation, which is true. Like it's, like I transform brands for sure. Like I transform their voice, I transform the story, and certainly the effect it has on their customers, I transform their business.
Well,
For
your
sure.
unique value proposition, according to the Genie, is transform unknown businesses into loved brands.
Yeah, and it's correct except one word.
Yeah.
Unknown. Because I do take some unknown businesses, but Google would disagree.
Right.
But if we just took unknown out,
Well, that's all you do. As
Yeah,
you tell the
I
genie,
transform businesses
say,
into love bands.
I like it, take out unknown. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you're like, and I want to see 3 versions of that UVP, give me some
Yeah.
other ideas on it. And quite often it'll come up with something that you hadn't thought about, but it still is paying homage to that transform businesses into love brands. And you're like, wow, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I want option number 3. Put that in there. Boom. Then it rewrites it. And every time you iterate inside the genie, it gets smarter about you and your brand.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's very clever.
anyways,
done.
it was fun running it through you. And by the way, that emotional promise being transformation, then it has to be backed up as what we talked about earlier is how do you measure the impact of brand storytelling? And we do that through what we call the physical gift. By buying, Greg's services, what do I physically get when it's all said and done? How do I measure this? And it could be anywhere from internal camaraderie to business growth to all of the above, right? And it said, your physical gift is recognition. It represents the measurable outcome that satisfies logical decision-making as it can be quantified through metrics like brand awareness, market share, media coverage, and industry authority that justify the investment in storytelling transformation.
Yeah, recognition resonated with me because, and it's something I hadn't thought of, but that recognition works on a number of levels. The person who brings me into the organization gets a lot of recognition because everyone goes, that was amazing. That was so much fun. You're transforming our business. There's transformation again.
Yeah.
So they get recognition. The CEO gets recognition. The brand gets recognition as well. So
and even on a deeper level, aren't they now recognizing the story that you helped them reveal to themselves?
Yeah. So it did resonate with me. It works on a number of levels.
Awesome. So what was your biggest surprise takeaway from the genie?
Look, first of all was just everything. Like how much was there was probably, I wouldn't say there was nothing surprising because it was all truth. Like
It was validating what
pretty
you're
much
doing
was,
well.
if that word unknown, if we took that out, I probably wouldn't change anything. The archetypes you had me as the magician and sage, and that's all true. It's like as soon as I said it, I was like, yep, that's me. I think the biggest surprise, and it was a pleasant surprise, and I realized I don't use it enough, was it really pulled out my unique point of difference is my 2 worlds that I come from the world of entertainment and working with Fortune 500 brands. Like that secret sauce of those 2 things together is powerful and quite unique. And it use it as this is why you're going to get recognition. This is why you're going to feel transformation is because this guy, which is me, is these 2 things together, which is unusual. So I thought that was the thing I went, oh, I don't really use that enough.
That's cool. Well, that's what we love about it is it does validate what you're doing well. It reveals gaps that could be close. And then, like you just said there, it inspires you in new ways to think about talking about your brand and or positioning it. And it's all based on how you are currently showing up in the world and then gives you a chance to go in and tweak anything you want. And by the way, we now have a brand new brand story grader on the website that is free. You can go in, push the white button, get your free assessment, and you can run any brand through it, and it's going to grade it on how well it's going to show up from an A+ to an F-, and it'll pull out 14 different assessment points, important storytelling elements of your brand, and give you a grade on each one of those and explain why it's great or why it's not and where it could be fixed. So even working with your own brands, you could pull up the Genie and run their URL through it, and it's going to give you a grade on how well they're showing up. And then they know where to go in and fix and start tweaking and that sort of thing.
Amazing.
No, it's been a lot of fun. And it's, for me, it's transforming the old way I used to do the StoryCycle system, which used to take months. Now you can literally do it in minutes using all the same IP. And we've been getting a lot of rave reviews for it. So very proud of it.
Yeah. No, I loved receiving it.
Well, Greg, your book is phenomenal, and I highly recommend it to anybody out there. And quite honestly, when I got it, I go, not another book on Hollywood storytelling and branding, but you have a lot of really great insights in there that I have not seen in other books. And I really loved the genres of how to land on the right genre. And then you back it up with a lot of other techniques. I mean, it's essentially a workbook. You get it. It looks like a textbook, but it's a workbook. And so I highly recommend it to anybody out there in the brand building world, creating a blockbuster brand. And where can people learn more about you, Greg?
Well, my business is called Narrativity, and you can go to narrativity.com. The book, Creating a Blockbuster Brand, you can check it out on blockbusterbrands.com. And I also have a story grader thing, which is like a messaging health check, free. It's slightly different. I've got multiple choices and sliding scales. And
yeah, it's cool. I did it this morning.
Yeah,
it's a neat tool.
But you can do that at storytellingquiz.com. So any of those three, Narrativity, Blockbuster Brands, or storytelling.com on all of them. Always happy to tell stories about storytelling.
Me too. And of course, we'll have all those links in the show notes, folks, so you can go over to the website and get those. Well, Greg, thank you so much coming to us all the way from Lisbon. What time is it there right now?
It's 7 p.m.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm just starting my day. You're finishing your day. Thank you. I know you're a busy guy, and we really appreciate you being on the show with us.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Park.
If you want to figure out what genre is right for your brand story, well, you first have to start by dialing in that brand story, and you can do it over at the StoryCycleGenie.ai. Look, it's the only AI-driven narrative native platform that uses our proven StoryCycle system, which has grown brands by more than 600% over the last 20 years that we've been using the StoryCycle system. But now we've automated it. So what used to take months only takes minutes to dial in your foundational brand narrative. And then from there, you create your nuanced brand story strategies for each of your audiences, told from their point of view, dialing in that genre for what they care about. And then it all comes together in a content playbook. And once you've done that, you have built your brand brain. From there, it feeds everything from your marketing strategies using our genies there to always on brand content that you can create for virtually every channel that you want to use to tell your story. So check it out at StoryCycleGenie.ai, and you can even test the strength of your current brand story for free. Just click on that little white brand assessment button. Fill out your name, email address, and copy in the URL of your website. In under 1 minute, it will give you a grade on the strength of your brand story, and even more so, a 14-point storytelling assessment that validates what you're doing well, reveals gaps that you can easily fix, and even inspires you with new ways to tell your story. Check it out over at StoryCycleGenie.ai. I hope you'll join me next Monday when my good friend and marketing wizard, Mark Schaefer, is going to be here, and we're going to be exploring and talking about the insights from his new book, How AI Changes Your Customers, the marketing guide to humanity's next chapter. You're not going to want to miss it. And until then, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself, so make that one epic. Thanks so much for listening.